YouTube ads have changed dramatically in 2025, and 99% of D2C e-commerce brands are sleeping on one of the biggest performance opportunities out there. In this video, I'm going to break down the exact changes that have just come into effect and what you can do to leverage YouTube ads to grow a new, reliable performance channel for your brand. Well, why should you listen to me? Well, I've been doing this for nearly 4 years now, managing YouTube campaigns for direct consumer eComm brands. And in the last quarter alone, our team has generated nearly 2.4 million in sales revenue from video campaigns on Google. So that is YouTube ad campaigns. So I like to think I know what I'm doing. My name is Liam, alongside my co-founder Jack. We have generated over $50 million in revenue for direct-to-consumer brands through our agency Vulcan Digital. You can check us out on all the links here, our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, things like that. But as always, I want to just jump right into the video. You can also join our free weekly newsletter where we drop all sorts of guides, educational content, how you can use Google, Meta, YouTube ads to actually scale your eComm store and do so both, reliably and profitably, which are obviously key in 2025. Before we get started, I want to preface this by saying this is not a beginner's walkthrough on how to connect your YouTube channel to Google Ads or how to launch your first video campaign on Google Ads. There are 101 videos out there on this very platform that can show you exactly how to do that. This instead is me condensing 4 years of learnings, taking that and putting it into a 20 to 30 minute video that you can actually use to determine 3 things. The first is whether or not YouTube is a good fit for your brand. The second is essentially whether the timing is right. So knowing whether, obviously, number one, YouTube is a good fit. Most importantly, then it's determining if the time is right to move from, say, another platform and layer on YouTube ads. Well, then if the answer to both of those questions is yes, if YouTube is a good fit for your brand, if the timing is right, well, then I'm going to show you what it actually takes to then be successful running YouTube ad campaigns for eComm stores. So I'm just going to start by touching briefly on the types of YouTube ads, just so we're orientated for the rest of the video. The most important ones to be aware of right now are skippable in-stream ads and then YouTube Shorts. So skippable in-stream ads are the ads that show at the start of a video. Essentially, then after 5 seconds, you can click skip ad and move on. YouTube Shorts are Google and YouTube's response to things like Instagram Reels and TikTok. So it is vertical format, mobile first, short form content. And for us, 80 to 90% of the videos we run are now YouTube Shorts, and then a little bit of skippable in-stream ads as well. I'm not going to touch too much on in-feed ads, non-skippable bumpers, things like that. I don't see their value anymore for eComm brands. If you're in different niches, if you're in lead gen, if you're using YouTube for brand awareness, those are still important placements to be aware of. I'm focusing on Pareto's principle here, which is 80% of success comes from 20% of output, and that 20% comes from YouTube Shorts primarily. So that is going to be the function of this video, is to really dive into exact strategies we use primarily for YouTube Shorts. The most important thing I want to draw your attention to is Google's video update. This came in March of 2025. Essentially, Google said that video action campaigns will be deprecated. They are going to be replaced by demand gen campaigns. So the way that we're going to run YouTube Shorts now is going to be slightly different. It's going to be through demand gen campaigns. What that means for us, it means that we have less control over some of those other placement types, things like our in-feed campaigns, our non-skippable bumper, things like that. We don't use them anyway. It doesn't really bother us too much. And first signs from these demand gen campaigns are really positive. So it's a net positive if you're an e-commerce store, but it is just something to be aware of. Question 1, is YouTube right for my brand? I get asked this time and time again by brand owners. They see someone else doing really well on YouTube, or they've heard YouTube is a potentially good avenue for them to expand into, but they don't really know much about it. They don't know, is it the same as Meta and TikTok? Does it behave slightly differently? And they don't know, are they naturally a good fit for it? So there's some prerequisites that I always say you need to have. The first is you need a solid AOV. There is absolutely no point in having an average order value of $25, $30. The likelihood of success here is going to be really, really low. Now that applies to Meta, TikTok, most other channels as well, but I would say it definitely applies in this instance to YouTube. So you need a solid AOV, ideally in the $75 to $100 range, but anything above $50 is usually a good starting point. Okay, the next thing then is, do you have a visually demonstrable product? So what I mean by that is, can you clearly show the value of your product in video? Now, if you can't, chances are that you're struggling on Meta, or you're not, pushing a whole lot of video on Meta. If you can't do that, well, then you're not going to get your message across. You're not going to be particularly effective in storytelling. So I would say, for the most part, YouTube is not a good channel for you. The next thing is patience, both patience and the budget. So YouTube, particularly if it's a new channel for you, you can expect really choppy initial performance. So if you're not willing to wait out that initial kind of 4 or 6 week period, if you're not willing to invest, then I probably will put the brakes on moving to YouTube right now. And the last thing then is, you need to have winning ad creative on Meta. And we'll get a small bit more into that later on in the video. So the next thing is timing. Is now the right time for you to move on to YouTube ads? So I always say you shouldn't be validating an offer on YouTube. I think you get quicker feedback on Meta, and I would validate your offer there. If you don't know your customer avatar inside out, do not go near YouTube ads. We'll show you why in just a few moments. The next thing then is, if your budget is spread really thin as it is already, so if you have a set budget that you're spending on acquisition across, say, Meta, TikTok, some other, Google as well, some other subsidiary platforms, maybe Reddit or Snapchat or Pinterest, and then you want to add YouTube to the mix, but you don't have the budget to do so, you're taking it away from somewhere else that may be working already, don't do that. You're much better off consolidating on what's working. And then the last thing, as I said, again, the timing is not right. If you don't have winning ad creative on Meta, the timing is not right to move to YouTube. YouTube should not be another place where you're testing ad creative. You should consolidate that testing budget, that testing data into one platform. And my recommendation is Meta. As I said, you get quicker feedback. I think Meta is a really good place to test, and YouTube is a really good place to then scale. From there, if you've determined, based on what I've said in the last minute or so, that YouTube is a fit for your brand and the timing is right, well, then what we're going to do is get into how you actually succeed with YouTube. So there are 4 pillars of success when it comes to YouTube ads. The first is analytics. The second is campaign setup or configuration. The third is your audience, and the fourth is your creative. None of these are more or less important than the other. They all work in tandem, and they all have to be dialed in. So when it comes to analytics, starting with tracking, this applies on any ad platform you're on. It's really important for Google when you're running search and shopping campaigns, but also really important, obviously, if you're running video campaigns. So you need to have your conversion tracking completely dialed in. So you need to see what quantity of people are coming to your landing pages, how many people are adding to the cart, purchasing, obviously. These things have to be really accurate, because they are obviously what are going to determine whether you're successful or not. So the first place to start is tracking, conversion tracking within your general analytics pillar. So with conversion tracking, you have to be super dialed in. You have to know exactly how many people are coming to the landing page, adding to cart, purchasing, of course. Fundamentals, these are really important. You'd be surprised how many people don't have it set up correctly, aren't monitoring these things correctly. So you've double purchasing, you've people who have it set up completely the wrong way, and then what they're deeming success is actually completely fabricated data. So obviously then it's wasted ad spend, it's wasted time, it's not good for your business. So set this up. This is a really important foundation. So measurement is the next thing. So what I just discussed about conversion tracking was focusing a lot on lag indicators like add to carts and purchases. But when it comes to video, you need to be looking at lead indicators, because that will determine how well performance is being monitored and what you deem success or failure in the initial phases of your campaign launch. So it may not be a week or 2 weeks before you start seeing regular purchases come through. So you need to get an indication of what's happening with those lead indicators. And when I say lead indicators, I'm talking about things that are happening before a purchase. So add to cart is good. That's one step back. Landing page clicks are good. That's another step back. But then we need to go and look at how people are interacting with the ad itself. So some things that we always do here, we look at view rate. So where your ad is being watched, if it's being watched as an in-stream ad, an in-feed ad, as a YouTube Shorts ad, Then video played to rate. What percentage of your audience watched 25%, 50%, 75, and 100%? So obviously then you get a sense of the drop off at each quartile. And then obviously your click-through rate is really important. It's a determinant of how well your storytelling is being received. And also then your CTA. Is your CTA compelling enough to get people to click through your ad? Your average CPM, your average cost per view, these are really important. And then your impression frequency per user, and then your average watch time per user. So these are things that you want to be monitoring really, really closely, particularly at the start when you just launch your campaigns. You want to be checking that your CTR is nice and strong, and you also want to see what percentage of people are watching your video through to certain markers. So moving on to campaign configuration next. So these are the key points that we need to focus on. The first thing is that we want to set up our video campaign using demand gen as a campaign type. Our objective is sales and our goal is conversions. What's really important then is excluding TVs. I also exclude tablets generally, and then I often, not always, exclude desktop. I want to set up YouTube Shorts campaigns, and I want to show people YouTube Shorts, generally only on mobile. The next thing then is I turn off optimized targeting. So optimized targeting is essentially where Google can expand beyond the targeting limitations that you give it to look for new customers. Now, the way I like to approach YouTube is I prefer to start with narrow targeting and then expand. So this is not me saying that I never use optimized targeting. I just don't tend to use it if I am setting up a new campaign with a new audience. I prefer to go narrow, and then if I want to expand or I want to let the machine learning expand into new audiences, then often I will test turning on optimized targeting, but I would recommend turning it off from the start. Next, when it comes to channels, the only thing then I run are YouTube Shorts. So I go into YouTube, I exclude in stream, in feed, and I only run YouTube Shorts. And then I also exclude the Discovery Network, Gmail, and display as well. So just running as YouTube Shorts campaigns. And this is really, really good because this is the first time that we can, in kind of one click, pick YouTube Shorts as the only place that we want to serve. When it comes to bidding and budgets next, this is really important. It's something that we've honed in on over the last 2 years, and 99% of the time, this is the best approach to take. And 100% of the time, it's the best approach to take if you are using YouTube for the first time in your ad account, or if you don't have a lot of data. So what you want to do is you want to start your campaign on maximize conversion bidding. So what this essentially means is that you are going to give YouTube a daily budget. So via Google Ads, obviously, you're going to give it a daily budget, let's say $100 of daily budget. It is going to go out and spend your $100 every single day and look to find you the most conversions that it can for that daily budget. So what that means is that you're giving it a set budget, it's spending all that budget, and it should be learning with time. So if instead you were to start with a target CPA, especially if you don't have much data, Google gets very sheepish because it doesn't have any indication of what a real CPA will be like. You may have put a very suffocating CPA goal on the campaign, and then as a result, Google doesn't spend and your campaign never really takes off the ground. So by giving it that air to breathe with maximize conversion bidding at the start, you're allowing it to learn over time. But as we know from learning periods, they can be choppy, and the choppiness you see on YouTube ads is quite profound. Now, after about 2 weeks, this does die down once you have some decent targeting in place, but you just should expect some level of choppiness and not get frightened when you see it. When you start out with YouTube ads, it is a commitment. It's a 4-week, 6-week commitment to letting things learn and letting things breed. But obviously, on the one hand, you are having to commit, but on the other hand, you're looking at the potential upside, and that is a new performance channel that can basically layer on top of Meta, layer on top of your Google search and shopping, and actually help you find new customers outside of Facebook and Instagram. So I definitely think it is worth the patience, but it is something to consider. And if you don't think you're going to have that patience or the budget, again, timing may not be right for you. So generally, I say wait for 2 to 4 weeks. Look for a consistent CPA pattern over kind of a 3 to 5 day window. So once CPA starts getting kind of that bit more consistent, you can then transition to a target CPA. What I'll generally do is I will set that target CPA either at or just slightly below where the campaign is currently operating at from a CPA perspective. So if our CPA is $40, I will set that TCPA to $40, or I might go down as low as maybe $35, $36 if I am really trying to push efficiency from the get-go. The higher we allow that TCPA to be, the more learning that will take place, the quicker the campaign will optimize. The same principles apply with cost caps on Meta. When it comes to budget, generally good rule of thumb, aim for 3 times your average order value as a daily budget. So if your average order value is $60, it's a $180 daily budget. So next up is audiences. For those of you familiar with Meta ads and media buying on Meta ads, you will have heard ad nauseum about broad targeting on Meta. So broad targeting means you leave the targeting open and you actually determine your audience via your creative. So the more kind of specific you can be with your creative, the more you can call out your ideal customer avatar, the higher the likelihood of your ads being shown to that avatar. Meta's machine learning works by showing this to a whole host of people. Your creative, that is, determining what people or what cohorts of people resonate more or less with it, and then with time getting smarter and showing it to people who are going to consistently resonate more. That is not the same, or at least I've not seen that behave the same on YouTube. So what I say when I'm trying to explain YouTube targeting compared with Meta targeting to someone that maybe isn't familiar with YouTube is that on Meta, your creative is your targeting. I've heard that so many times, but on YouTube, your targeting is your targeting, which sounds kind of silly, but we'll show you why in just a second. The most important thing is YouTube and Meta are not the same. So there's 2 trains of thought when it comes to audience targeting on YouTube. You can either start really broad and then get more condensed into a narrower audience with time, or you can go the opposite approach. You can start with a very narrow audience and then you can expand horizontally over time. I generally take the latter approach. I think it's better. Most brands, when they're moving on to YouTube, they want to see efficiency right away. That's not always possible, but it is much more likely when you start with a narrow audience of people you know fit your ICP. And it is really important also, if you've got a niche product, you need to be targeting that audience that is going to resonate with the product. What I say is that if you start narrow, you can always expand horizontally into new audiences with time, but the opposite is more difficult. I always feel that it's more difficult to start really broad and then narrow without actually constricting the algorithm and constricting the level of success you may have had with broad targeting. So start narrow, expand horizontally. I think that's a much better approach to take. So what I'm going to do to discuss audiences a small bit is I'm going to use an example so we can actually kind of conceptualize it in reality. So this is a huge D2C brand, Kizik Footwear. Their strongest value proposition, I would say, based on their site, is that they offer slip-on shoes. So you don't have to tie the laces, you can just slide into them. They've patented technology that allows you to do that. So they have a whole host of YouTube shorts, both ads and organic. And I'm going to discuss maybe some of the targeting options that we would take, not knowing obviously the inner workings of their marketing strategy, but just using it as an example. When it comes to audiences, the way we like to operate is that each product vertical or customer avatar follows a very, very similar pattern. Then what we'll do is we're going to take our top 2 or 3 best ad creative from Meta. So our best videos from Meta, we're going to take them. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply them across 3 different ad groups. So our ad 1, 2, and 3 is the same as ad 1, 2, and 3 in this ad group is the same as ad 1, 2, and 3 in this ad group. So that remains constant. The next thing that we're going to do is that at the ad group level, we are going to have different audiences. The first 2 are custom segment audiences, and the last one is a lookalike audience. With custom segment audiences, there's a few ways that you can create a custom segment. One of them is by actually looking at search intent. So looking at what people are actively searching for and trying to curate a custom audience or a custom segment of people based on their previous searches or recent searches. So the goal here is to target high intent shoppers, not just passive viewers. So essentially what you're doing is you're showing your ad to people who you believe are in market for your product or type of product. Taking Kizik Footwear as an example here, and say we wanted to look at slip-on shoes just for women. Say our demo here is 25 to 44-year-old females who are looking for a slip-on shoe on the go, everyday kind of a trainer. So some of these search queries that this demo might have are no lace trainers for women, hands-free shoes, women's trainers without laces, easy to wear shoes, things like that. So obviously this is not exceptionally granular, but it is just to give you an idea of how this operates. So essentially, these people that we're targeting are people who have searched recently for these kind of terms. So we know that they're showing high intent for this sort of solution. So this is the first audience that we look at. It's a custom segment using keywords. So using anything that these people searched for on Google. The second custom segment that we use then are based on website visiting. So what we do is we look at a series of websites. Generally, these will be either competitor sites. They might be really well-known blog articles or studies or things like that we think our ideal customer persona is actively reviewing. So as I said, either competitor sites or maybe some more educational content. We will use those sites to create a custom segment of people. So what this means is that instead of thinking exactly what people are searching for, we're thinking about their behavior pre-purchase. What websites are they visiting? What information are they seeking out? And what websites will typically deliver them that information. Generally, what we have are, say, competitor sites. These are a really good option. These are going to be very general brands. For Kizik, I'm sure they have a much more granular approach to how they operate here. But just again, to give you a sense, maybe Skechers, Allbirds, these would be competitor sites, and maybe people who are in their ICP, this female 25 to 44 age bracket, they are visiting these sites. They're searching for alternative solutions, and these are people that we want to be targeting. They are in market to buy a pair of shoes. Then the last thing are lookalike audiences. So what we do here is we give YouTube or Google our first party data. So most often our customer list, maybe our most valuable customers, maybe people who spend the most time on our site, things like that, our email subscribers, a whole host of first party lists. And we ask Google to basically find a lookalike audience from that. So what this means is that we can expand into people who share similarities with our known customers. So it can be really, really powerful. So again, what you'll do, maybe you can do something like website visitors. I don't think website visitors is the most powerful thing, because obviously of 100 website visitors, you might have 98 people who don't convert. So what actually is better is taking your first party data of people who do convert and using that as your seed list. So with your seed list, then you just label your name and say, maybe in this instance, it's 100-day website visitors. And then what you can do, obviously choose your location, but then segment reach is really interesting. And what that means is that you can either look for quite a broad, quite a narrow, or a balanced reach. And the level of, let's say, width that Google goes, so broad being at 10%, it means how far away from what a typical person in your seed list looks like can Google expand into. So if you go broad here, it means that Google can look that bit further for people that maybe don't mirror the exact traits and behaviors as your seed list. If you look very narrow, then obviously you want Google to go and search for people who are super, super close to a typical customer of yours. Generally, as I said, with audiences, better off starting narrow, expanding broad. So a narrow or even a balanced segment reach works quite well here. So you have three audiences that you're now testing. You're testing your custom segment on keywords, your custom segment on websites, and your lookalike audience. The other thing that you always need to do is you need to exclude your customer list. So you need to use Google and YouTube, and the same way you need to use Meta as a vehicle to find new customers. If you leave your customer list in there, well, then Google will over time get smarter. It will start retargeting to your existing customers, knowing that they have a high likelihood to buy. It'll have a touch point on YouTube just before they buy. It will get credit. You'll think things are going really well, but actually YouTube isn't delivering you any new customers or anything like that. So very important to exclude your all-time customer list so that you're searching more so for a colder audience. So that's one way that we exclude and we get narrow. The next thing then is on the demo. So your demographics. So if you know your demographic really, really well, I definitely recommend adding a layer of demographic refinement to your audience. And this applies to each of the three audiences. So in this instance, we would say we want to refine it to females aged 25 to 44. I always see this outperform broad demographics, unless of course your product has a really broad appeal and you want to target everyone, that's fine too. You don't have to do demographic targeting unless you know your customer avatar inside out and you know they fit into X demo. Last up then is ad creative. So for YouTube Shorts, generally 20 to 60 seconds works really well. Like all video creative at the moment, it is getting to a point where slightly longer ad creative that has more storytelling elements, that has more social proof, more expert endorsements, things like that, actually is performing slightly better than short and kind of sub 20-second content. So this is something that we would apply across the board on Meta and even on TikTok, maybe to a lesser degree on TikTok, but you always have that bit more bandwidth on YouTube to have a slightly longer video. But that said, I still would not go beyond that 60-second mark. 9:16 format, obviously for vertical, for mobile first. Always include subtitles. A large proportion of people will watch these videos without audio, so you need to have your subtitles included. And the most important thing is you need to confirm proof of concept on Meta or TikTok when it comes to your actual ad creative. So taking your ad creative over from Meta and TikTok, there shouldn't be a whole lot of things that you need to do to adjust it. You may want to make it slightly longer. You may want to make it slightly more engaging, but generally these are things that you should be doing on Meta as a rule of thumb anyway. I always say start with movement or curiosity. So in this instance for the Kizik footwear, so one of the big things, as I said at the start, was that this brand, their USP is that you can just slide right into their shoes. You don't have to tie the laces. So an opening scene here of someone maybe rushing and jumping into a pair of shoes, but standing on the back of the shoe and then falling over, all happening within the first 1 or 2 seconds, that will hit on motion. It will hit on a very much a scroll stopping hook, and it will be something different. And it also plays into the problem solution aspect that you want to probably tell in the instance of this brand. So the problem in this instance is that, you know, you're sick and tired of having to tie your laces, having to untie them and things like that, especially when you're in a rush. The solution then is very much going to be a visual demonstration of the solution. So as I said at the top of the video, if your product isn't visually demonstrable, then it is no use you advertising on YouTube. So in this instance, such a visually demonstrable product, you can show people in all different places. So going out the front door, you can show them. I saw one earlier on that Kizik have in the airport. I thought it was really cool. A whole different host of places where you can actually have visual demonstration of your product and your USP. Then what you can do, even in the case of UGC, if you are 60-70% into your video, you can actually stitch some additional social proof from different UGC creators. We see that work actually really well. So the first 20 seconds of your video might be that open into that problem solution from a single UGC creator, and then you can have some really quick cuts between other creators talking about your product and different features and how they love it, etc. And then the most important thing is having a really strong CTA. And I always say, whenever possible, have a really solid offer and have urgency in the CTA. That's the general approach we take to creative storytelling on YouTube. You should be doing a lot of these things on Meta anyway. YouTube should be somewhere where you're testing your audience targeting, not testing your creative. As I said, you should have winning creative from Meta that you're just dropping into YouTube. Lastly, then it comes to retargeting ads. So you've brought all this cold traffic in from YouTube. You then want to make sure that you're retargeting these people. So what we do here is slightly different to our traditional campaigns. So we choose a campaign that doesn't have guidance. So create a campaign without guidance. There's no set objective. What that means is that we can then use video campaigns still. We select video views as our campaign subtype, and then we'll pick a retargeting audience. So it might be our website visitors over the last maybe 3 or 7 days. It could be people who viewed a certain product, people who added to cart. So that's entirely up to you. And then we will generally either use, if we're using horizontal style videos, if we have some kind of longer form content that, really helps to get people over the line, if it is full of social proof, offer urgency, etc., we can use some horizontal formats. And then we'll choose our skippable in-stream ads. If we want to keep retargeting with UGC, well, then we can use YouTube Shorts. The option is up to you based on what you see working on Meta. I know a lot of Meta advertisers are using solely static ad creative when it comes to retargeting, as it is cheaper. So this might be somewhere where you actually do a small bit of testing when it comes to retargeting on YouTube. If you are going to use the skippable in-stream, you have the opportunity then to choose your keywords, your topics, your placements. The things I would exclude are here. As I said, always this video is in the description, so you can just copy and paste these in. What these are basically you excluding your videos from the YouTube homepage, any placement that falls beyond YouTube, so somewhere in the display network, and then also your mobile apps. So you don't want to be showing on like gaming apps, really low quality placement. So excluding those will just give you a level of efficiency that you wouldn't get from keeping them included in your campaign. And then you're using target cost per view bidding. Generally, we set this up in the region of 10 to 30 cent. But again, that varies widely per niche and how much you're paying for your cold audience, and also then what audience it is you're retargeting. So generally, I find the more narrow the audience it is we're retargeting, so say an add to cart audience as opposed to a whole website visitor list, the more expensive our CPMs will be, which means the more expensive our CPV will be, meaning that we need to let CPV breathe a little. Now, again, always the approach you can take here is err on the higher side and refine with time when it learns. But again, this is our general approach to retargeting. Some people don't opt for any retargeting on YouTube. That's fine. They let Meta do most of the work on that. But we do like a low level of spend on retargeting. If especially you are spending a lot of money on a cold audience kind of prospecting campaign on YouTube, it's always worth adding an extra layer into your funnel for that. The three things that the brands that are actually succeeding on YouTube right now are doing are they are proving their creative first on Meta. So everything is being tested on Meta. We know it's successful before we move it across to YouTube. So we're not testing creative on YouTube. Big no-no. The second thing then, and something I haven't touched on at all in the video, is that YouTube is being layered on an already functional shopping and search bedrock. So all your prospecting shopping campaigns, your branded search, everything like that is all nailed, all dialed in before you add a layer of YouTube on top. And the last thing then, I think I've gone through exhaustively about how important it is to know your target audience, because that will determine how well you can create those custom segments. So the brands that are doing really well know exactly who their audience is and exactly what they're doing pre-purchase, what they're searching for, what websites they're on, what their behaviors are like. And because of that, then they can get their targeting so much more effective from the get-go, meaning that they're way more efficient and the algorithm learns way quicker. So their results are night and day versus those that are looking at broad targeting or don't know or just guessing. We never run things like in-market segments, affinity audiences. They don't work in our experience. You need to dial in your targeting. This might change. YouTube might go down the same route as Meta in that broad targeting becomes part and parcel of how you set up your campaigns. That right now is not the case. So there you have it. Everything you need to know to run profitable YouTube ad campaigns for your direct-to-consumer brand. So if you're looking for the guide, it's pinned in the description below. You can also access it here by clicking through our newsletter and signing up. As I said, you'll get free weekly guides and everything like that. If you need more help, if you want to discuss YouTube ads, if you think now could be the right time, but you're not really sure if you want to go it alone and you're looking for a little bit of help there, well then book in a quick chat with me. Again, my link will be in the description. We can discuss if it is a good time for a business and if YouTube is a good fit for your business. If so, I can kind of outline what it looks like for us to manage that for you. I'll be back very, very soon to run through even more ways that you can use YouTube ads, Google ads, and Meta ads to actually scale your D2C store in 2025. So I'll see you with the next video.